Sit back and enjoy 2 hours of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let's get started. The first chocolate bar to be sold on a massive scale was made by the brand Fry's in 1866. It was made in England. Meanwhile, Nestle's chocolate bar was first sold in 1875 and Hershey's in 1900. Approximately half of the world's population has a mutation in a specific gene that prevents them from tasting the compounds that make Brussels sprouts taste bitter. People who do not have this mutation do not like eating this vegetable. Okapis are a species that comes from a mix between zebras and giraffes, and in Western civilization, they were thought to be fictional until they were discovered in 1890 in what is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The black boxes or flight recorders that all airplanes must carry in case of an accident have to withstand an acceleration of 3,400 g for 6.5 milliseconds, which is approximately equivalent to an impact at 311 miles per hour. The carnivorous plant, Venus flytrap, only grows naturally within a radius of 62 miles around Wilmington, North Carolina, United States. But thanks to efforts to conserve the species, naturalized populations have been cultivated in other areas of the world with tropical climates. Many types of aged cheeses, such as cheddar, Parmesan, and Swiss, could be considered lactose-free due to the process used to make them, in which the whey is separated and discarded. If you take a pill without water, it can take longer to take effect. There is also a risk that it may get stuck in the esophagus, with the possibility of forming an ulcer in more extreme cases, which is why they should always be taken with water. In Saudi Arabia, robotic jockeys began to be used in camel races because many people were being forced to act as jockeys against their will, which became illegal in 2005. These races are very popular in the Middle Eastern country. Hypermnesia is a neurological condition that causes a person to have hyperfunction in their brain's storage capacity. This means they can remember everything that happens to them in the smallest detail. It is commonly referred to as photographic memory. There is a small volcano 49 feet tall in Colombia called El Totumo. Its crater is filled with mud, where around 15 people can enter to bathe and receive massages. According to a scientific theory, around 70,000 years ago, the Toba volcano in Indonesia erupted and was so massive that ash blocked out sunlight for 6 years. Humans alive at that time almost went extinct, and according to studies, there may have been only 40 pairs of humans left, from whom we all descend today. The largest gold nugget ever found weighed 214 pounds. It was discovered in 1869 in Australia and was not buried deep underground. In fact, it was located only 1.18 inches below the surface. Ostriches and zebras sometimes live together to protect themselves from predators. Ostriches have better eyesight, while zebras are better at hearing and smelling danger, making it a good combination. 70 million years ago, there was a giant toad called Beelzebufo, or the devil toad. It could grow to more than 15.7 inches and weigh nearly 11 pounds. Its diet included small dinosaurs. The largest Anuran amphibian today is the Goliath frog, which can grow up to 13 inches. The upside-down ketchup bottle used by the brand Heinz was invented by Paul Brown, an employee at a plastic molding company who had to make 111 prototypes before arriving at the final design, which he patented shortly afterward in 1991. Heinz bought it from him for $13 million. The plantaris is a muscle in the calf that is believed to have been used by our ancestors to grip tree branches with their feet. Today, it is so small and weak that it is considered obsolete and is thought to be disappearing through evolution. Between 7 and 10% of the world's population does not have it. Opossums are the only animals known so far with the ability to neutralize up to 80 different types of venom, including that of rattlesnakes. It is hoped that, in the future, this ability can be adapted and transferred to humans. Opossums do not transmit diseases, unlike rodents such as rats. Due to their atmospheric composition, scientists say that the planets Venus and Mars have a smell similar to rotten eggs. The transistors that are currently being manufactured are so small, between 0.0002 and 0.0003 inches, that they are surpassing the theoretical limit once believed possible and may even malfunction due to the effects of quantum physics. With a new method using carbon nanotubes, they will be able to be made even smaller without affecting performance, resulting in more powerful processors. The chemical compound trinitrotoluene, also known as TNT, was created in 1863 with the intention of being used as a yellow dye. It is so stable that it was used as a dye for decades before its explosive potential was discovered. The famous Pillars of Creation Nebula, which is located approximately 41 trillion miles away, was destroyed by a supernova 6,000 years ago. This means that in about 1,000 years, we will be able to observe its destruction through telescopes, since its light takes roughly that distance to reach our planet. Scientists know it has already been destroyed based on mathematical estimates of the movement of nearby celestial bodies. Emperor penguins can deactivate some of their own organs that they are not using in order to conserve energy, allowing them to remain underwater for periods of more than 20 minutes. 15 million years ago, there existed a species of koala that was 20 times larger than the koalas that exist today. The Energizer Bunny was created as a parody of the Duracell Bunny. It exists only in North America because the trademark Duracell, held on mascot bunnies since 1973, ended in 1988. Currently, Duracell can use pink bunnies on its products in the rest of the world. According to a popular legend, the first time potato chips were cooked was in 1853, when a customer at a restaurant in New York sent his French fries back to the kitchen because they were cut too thick. The chef, annoyed, sliced them as thin as possible and added a lot of salt. To his surprise, the customers liked them very much. The land that is now Manhattan in New York belongs to Native Americans, who sold it to Europeans in the 17th century for the equivalent of $16. If at that time they had placed those $16 in a savings account earning 8% annual interest, today that amount would be enough to buy all of Manhattan and still have $222 trillion left over. But it is not as if there were an 8% interest savings account available at that time. The Goliath tigerfish is known for being a larger and more extreme version of piranhas. It has 32 teeth the size of shark teeth, and there have been cases in which it has attacked humans and even crocodiles. There are positive and negative lightning strikes. Positive ones do not originate from the negatively charged areas of a cloud, and their return stroke is much stronger than that of normal negative lightning, giving them greater destructive potential. But they are less common. In 2003, Morocco offered the United States to send 2,000 monkeys to Iraq to help with the armed conflict taking place at the time. They were going to be used to detonate landmines, but the offer was rejected. There is a species of grasshopper that, during its larval stage, develops tiny gears that help it gain more power in its legs to jump. However, it loses them as it reaches adulthood. It is the only animal discovered so far that evolved to have mechanical gears. If all the salt in the ocean could be extracted and spread evenly over all the land on Earth, it would form a layer about 492 feet deep, roughly the height of a 40-story building. People often shout, "Geronimo!" when jumping from high places. This comes from a tradition that began when a soldier was testing parachutes in 1940 and wanted to show he was not afraid. So the day before, he promised his fellow soldiers he would shout Geronimo, who was an Apache leader from the 19th century. When they saw that he did shout it, they did not want to be left behind, and everyone started shouting it as well. And that is how it stuck. Actor Jim Carrey hired a CIA undercover agent trainer to teach him techniques to endure the torture of the makeup process while filming the movie The Grinch. Each day, he had to sit for 8 hours without moving while being made up. The advice this expert gave him was to hit himself on the leg and eat everything he could find. Andromeda is not the closest galaxy to the Milky Way, where our solar system is located. The Canis Major Dwarf Galaxy is 100 times closer than Andromeda, at 42,000 light-years from the center of the Milky Way. What we commonly call getting goosebumps is actually a remnant from when our ancestors had more body hair. When we were scared, the hair would stand up and make us appear larger to intimidate predators. The ratatouille dish served in the movie of the same name was prepared by chef Thomas Keller, one of the most successful chefs, and then digitally recreated for the film. According to a study, hugging someone for approximately 20 seconds or more releases oxytocin, a hormone that reduces stress, blood pressure, and the risk of heart disease. There are solid chemical substances that attract so much moisture that when exposed to normal atmospheric conditions, they become liquid after absorbing all the humidity in the air. This process is called deliquescence. There is an orchid that grows in the jungles of Peru and Ecuador that evolved to resemble the face of a monkey in order to protect itself from predators. The superhero Flash, first published in 1940, was the first comic book character whose story was rebooted. He was also the first to travel to an alternate universe and meet himself, and the first to have an apprentice who later inherited his role. Nearly all popular characters afterward would have similar storylines. In many parts of the world, eggs are commonly washed before being displayed in stores to make them look better before being sold. However, it has been shown that this removes a protective layer and allows bacteria to enter. There are species of crabs that live inside oysters, clams, and mussels. One of these is the pea crab, which is considered a parasite because by eating the food of the oyster or host animal, it affects its nutrition. The largest diurnal butterfly in the world is the Queen Alexandra's birdwing butterfly. It inhabits New Guinea and can reach a wingspan of up to approximately 12.2 inches. The reason different pasta shapes are made, even though they use the same ingredient, has to do with the type of sauce they are meant to be paired with. Larger and hollow shapes are for thicker sauces, while smaller ones are for thinner sauces. During the Carboniferous period of the Paleozoic era, around 320 million years ago, oxygen levels were much higher than they are today. This caused many animals, especially insects, to grow to enormous sizes. The largest was a millipede of more than approximately 8 feet, but later oxygen levels stabilized and only small insects remained. All citrus fruits that exist are actually variations of 3 original fruits: pomelos, lemons, and mandarins. The others are simply hybrids, such as oranges, which are a combination of mandarins and pomelos created several centuries ago. Mount Olympus on the planet Mars has a height of approximately 16.8 miles, nearly 3 times the height of Mount Everest. The summit is so high that it rises above the planet's atmosphere, and if you were standing on top and looked down, you would not be able to see the base because it would be beyond the horizon line. Ants can misinterpret the chemical signals left by other ants and begin walking in circles. If many ants join in, it can even involve an entire colony that remains like this indefinitely. This is also called the death spiral. Bats save the agricultural industry billions of dollars every year because some of them eat insects, reducing the need for pesticides. Likewise, fruit bats help pollinate plants such as peaches, bananas, and agave, among others. Once, astronaut Buzz Aldrin punched a man who approached him on the street to say that the moon landing was a myth and completely fake. Aldrin went to the moon with Neil Armstrong on the Apollo 11 mission in 1969. Isaac Newton was the first person to propose that planet Earth was not a perfect sphere. It is an oblate spheroid, flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator. From the center of the Earth, sea level is approximately 13 miles higher at the equator than at the poles. In the movie Forrest Gump, Gump receives a letter from Apple thanking him for his investment in 1975, which today would have made him a multi-billionaire. However, this was a mistake by the filmmakers, since Apple was founded in 1976. Even months later, they were still operating out of Steve Jobs' garage. Sugar-free or Diet Coca-Cola floats in water, while regular Coca-Cola with sugar does not float because it is denser than water. This can easily be tested by submerging cans of both versions of the drink. The first portable microcomputer released to the general market was the Osborne 1 in 1981. It weighed more than 22 pounds, had to be plugged into an electrical outlet at all times, and cost $1,795, which today would be roughly $5,000. Portable it was for those willing to carry it. In 1983, an Air Canada plane with 69 people on board ran out of fuel mid-flight. The mistake was that they loaded 22,300 pounds of fuel instead of approximately 5,889 gallons. Fortunately, the pilot managed to land the plane by gliding, keeping everyone safe. Staplers have 2 settings. One is used to permanently fasten sheets of paper together and is the most commonly used, while the other is meant to hold them together with less force in case they need to be separated. To change it, you only need to rotate the metal plate at the base. Paul Winchell, the original voice of Tigger in Winnie the Pooh, in addition to inventing the artificial heart, also held other patents, including a battery-powered car and a new method for raising tilapia. In a harvest of approximately 5,511 pounds of pearl oysters at a specialized farm, only 3 or 4 oysters produce pearls. Finding them naturally is very difficult. When sprinter Usain Bolt broke the world record in the 100-meter dash at the 2009 World Championships in Berlin, the mayor of the city gave him a piece of the Berlin Wall weighing nearly 3 short tons. It is currently located in the Military Museum of Jamaica, Bolt's country of origin. When the first completely free and democratic elections were held in Poland, a new party called Polish Beer Lovers won 360,000 votes and gained 16 seats in parliament. In Great Britain, it is possible to determine the year a building was constructed by the size of the bricks used. This is because in 1784, an extra tax was imposed on each brick to fund a war, and in response, people began using larger bricks so fewer would be needed. Some automobiles from the 1930s had an analog GPS system with maps that rolled like a scroll, giving the impression that they moved along with the distance you were traveling. Digital GPS systems would not arrive in cars until the 1990s. A trained raven named Jimmy appeared in more than 1,000 Hollywood movies between 1934 and 1954, including It's a Wonderful Life and The Wizard of Oz. In addition, he received a special medal for more than 200 hours of entertaining war veterans. He is considered one of the most successful animal actors. The racing driver Ayrton Senna, after crashing at the 1984 Dallas Grand Prix, said it had not been his fault and that the wall had moved. No one believed him until, after insisting that it be checked, they realized the wall had indeed moved a few centimeters due to a previous crash. On one occasion, Queen Elizabeth II invited King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia for a ride in her Land Rover. This happened during a visit to Scotland, and at one point the king asked his translator to tell her to slow down and focus on the road. This occurred in 2003. Women were not allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia, and it is believed the queen was driving fast on purpose to annoy him. More than half of all the cheese consumed in the world is of the Gouda variety, which originated in the city of Gouda in the Netherlands and is now a generic term, meaning it can be produced anywhere in the world. The two tallest mountains in the state of Colorado in the United States have almost the same height. This has caused admirers of each mountain to pile rocks on the summit to make their favorite mountain taller. Physicist Albert Einstein was also skilled in music. He could play the violin and the piano with great ability. He once mentioned that the greatest scientists are also great artists. The corn plant is now so domesticated and adapted to our needs that no identical plants exist in the wild, meaning that if we stopped cultivating corn, it would go extinct in just a few years. In 2014, Robert Morris University in Chicago announced the first esports athletic scholarship, specifically for the game League of Legends. But according to testimonies, many students in that program have ended up over the years paying more money and failing in the competitive scene of that video game. There was a period of time when the Aston Martin car factory had only one manufacturing robot that applied adhesives to bond aluminum parts. They called it James Bonder, as a reference to the English word bond, meaning to join or glue, and also to the character James Bond, who drives a car from this brand. Between the first and the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt, 3,000 years passed. In total, there were 170 pharaohs, who were considered almost like deities since their role included both political and religious matters. The main reason Andy does not have a father in the movie Toy Story from 1994 is that, at the time, creating a complete digital human character was very expensive and labor-intensive for Pixar, and it was not necessary for the story. The largest abandoned factory in the world is that of the Packard Automobile Company in the city of Detroit. In the 1950s, these cars were considered luxury vehicles and even sold more than Cadillac. However, in a short time their sales fell and they had to close in 1956. Emperor Hirohito of Japan is a fan of Mickey Mouse. During a guided visit he made to Disneyland in 1975, he was given a custom Mickey watch, which he later wore for years at multiple official events. The company Ford once created a car made entirely from plants. It was in 1941 when they introduced the biological car, or soy car, which used a mix of soy and hemp fibers to create a type of plastic and ran on hemp ethanol. However, it remained only a prototype and was never released to the market. The diet of the bearded vulture consists of 90% bones. This allows it to feed on leftovers left by other animals. To eat bones that are too large, it picks them up, flies very high, and drops them so they break into smaller pieces when they hit the ground. King Edward VII of the United Kingdom could not fasten the bottom button of his vest due to his abdominal circumference. In other words, his belly. So ordinary people began wearing it the same way, something that even became a tradition. Necroplanetology is the study of planets in planetary systems that have been destroyed. By analyzing the floating ruins they left behind, scientists can create a virtual reconstruction of what they once looked like. There is a professional cricket player from India named Napoleon Einstein. When asked about his unusual name, he explained that his parents preferred to give him the names of notable figures instead of religious names, which are more common. A player of EVE Online founded a bank within the game that operated for months managing the money of other players. He did this until one day he decided to take all the money and leave, which was equivalent to 170,000 real dollars. And there was no way to punish him because everything he did was legal within the game. Chewing gum is traditionally pink because it was the only dye that Walter Deemer, its inventor, had on hand, and it was also his favorite color. Since its birth, the Sun has completed about 20 orbits around the Milky Way. This distance is so vast that it has barely moved since humans have existed. The last time it was in the exact same position in the universe, the planet was inhabited by dinosaurs. The McRib sandwich from McDonald's is sold seasonally or as a limited-time item. It is believed that pork prices influence when the McRib returns. It is sold when pork prices are low relative to beef prices. The bassist of the band Guns N' Roses, Duff McKagan, did not know how to spend his money. So he decided instead to invest $100,000 in companies from his hometown of Seattle that were just starting or beginning to grow, including Starbucks and Amazon when it was only an online bookstore. Today, his net worth is estimated at $70 million. The mathematical engineer and physicist Paul Dirac wanted to refuse the Nobel Prize in 1933 after he was announced as the winner, because he did not like the attention he might receive. He accepted it anyway, since if he had been the first person to reject a Nobel Prize, the attention would have been even greater. Laughter yoga is a therapy method used to reduce stress and anxiety that involves gathering a group of people and laughing voluntarily for no reason. It has been proven that laughter helps with these conditions. The trip that the members of the Beatles made to India ended badly, since the guru Maharishi Mahesh Yogi asked them to deposit 25% of the profits from their next album into his account at a Swiss bank as a tribute or tithe. John Lennon immediately refused outright. In 1979, an Arctic bison was discovered in Alaska that had been preserved in ice for more than 8,000 years. It is an extinct species that inhabited the northern regions of the planet. While preparing it for exhibition, researchers decided to taste it and discovered that the meat had been well preserved, with only a slight earthy flavor. There are liquid mirror telescopes that, instead of using traditional glass mirrors, use a highly reflective liquid metal, such as mercury or gallium. The container holding the metal is spun, so that centrifugal force creates a parabolic shape that works just like glass, but is much more economical. The movie Rango was filmed entirely with real people acting it out like a normal movie before being made digital. This was done to better capture the actor's body language and make everything feel more natural. Kansai Airport in Osaka, Japan, is an artificial island built specifically for the airport. Due to land and sea movement, a special hydraulic system had to be implemented to maintain it, since it was sinking and could have disappeared completely. When both sides fighting a civil war in Nigeria learned that Pele would be playing in an exhibition soccer match in the country in 1967, they decided to establish a 48-hour ceasefire so everyone could peacefully watch the game before continuing the fighting. In the movie Gravity, the space station and a satellite are destroyed by space debris, something that could not happen in real life because the space station is in a low orbit of 218 miles, while communication satellites are on average at a height of 21,748 miles. When the Persians set out to invade Greece expecting an easy victory about 25 centuries ago, they brought a block of marble to build a monument celebrating their win. However, they lost in what would become known as the Battle of Marathon. That marble block was used by the Greeks to create the statue of Nemesis, the goddess of divine justice. The largest ships use seawater ballast tanks to maintain stability, which are later released thousands of miles from where the water was taken, transporting organisms to places where they can destabilize marine ecosystems. In addition to environmental damage, this causes economic losses of billions of dollars. The largest embassy in the world is that of the United States in Iraq. Building it cost $750 million, and at one point, it had up to 16,000 employees. Super Bowl 45 was the first to be played between two teams that did not have cheerleaders. It was played between the Green Bay Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2011. Currently, 25 of the 32 NFL teams have a cheerleading squad. The cheese used by most pizza chains, such as Domino's, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's, is sold by the same company, Leprino Foods, which sells approximately 551,156 short tons of cheese each year and earns $3 billion. The actor Jeremy Piven suffered mercury poisoning in 2009. This happened because he ate sushi twice a day, every day, for 20 years. Some fish species can contain excessive mercury and cause problems when consumed in large amounts. There are guides with advice on how to survive a fall from an airplane without a parachute that recommend things such as aiming for areas with snow or places with trees that can cushion the fall. There are some examples of people who have survived this way. There is evidence that there is an underground river located 2.49 miles below the Amazon River, and that it may even be longer than the surface river, with more than 3,728 miles, although researchers in Brazil have said that it is actually a water reservoir that is filtered down from the surface. In 1997, Microsoft saved Apple from bankruptcy by investing $150 million. Steve Jobs managed to secure this deal in exchange for Apple dropping a lawsuit in which they claimed that Windows had copied elements from Mac OS. Once, scientists conducted a study published in the journal Nature that involved going to Antarctica and poking sleeping penguins with sticks until they woke up. This was done to determine whether penguins sleep more deeply in the afternoons, and they concluded that they do. To gain new users, the co-founder of Pinterest, Ben Silverman, used to go into Apple stores and set all the computer's web browsers to Pinterest. He did this several times until they eventually noticed and banned him from entering. Shazam, formerly known as Captain Marvel, sold more than Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and, in general, the entire comic book industry combined during the 1940s. However, with the emergence of new superheroes, it gradually lost popularity in the following decades. The country of Saudi Arabia has already used almost all the water within its territory, after decades of using it for agriculture in the desert. Within a few years, it will have to import all of its food because it will no longer be able to produce it. The website IMDb, or Internet Movie Database, is one of the oldest websites still in existence. It was created in 1990, when actors and actresses began being compiled in a news group, and in 1998, it was acquired by Amazon. Today, it is one of the most visited websites in the world. In Toy Story, in Andy's room, you can see books whose titles are actually the names of Pixar's previous short films. When the television channels change very quickly, some of these shorts can also be seen. There is a law still in effect in Ontario, Canada, which states that if you do not pay the bill at the hotel where you stayed, the establishment has the right to sell your horse. The egg ovens of ancient Egypt that were used as incubators to hatch chickens were capable of incubating thousands of eggs every 3 weeks, and their design was so perfect that more than 200 are still in use today. Actor Steve Carell never won an Emmy for Best Comedy Actor during the years he portrayed the character Michael Scott on the series The Office, which remains a favorite to this day. Meanwhile, actor Jim Parsons, who played Sheldon Cooper on the series The Big Bang Theory, won 4 Emmy Awards during that same period of time. In the year 2000, the company Mitsubishi launched a promotion called 000, offering a car with 0 down payment, 0% interest, and 0 payments during the first year. To boost sales, many people kept the cars for only 1 year and then canceled the plan, leaving Mitsubishi with thousands of used cars worth less than what they had cost to produce. At the London 1908 Olympic Games, one of the exhibition sports was pistol dueling with blank rounds, in which the competitors wore thick clothing and a metal helmet to avoid injury, although it was never added as a regular sport. In the Roman Empire, there was a daily gazette called the Acta Diurna. It contained important events and news. It was written on stone or metal and also painted on white walls called albums. This practice was started by Emperor Julius Caesar and lasted for more than 250 years. In 1949, a French film director named Willy Rosier challenged a critic to a sword duel after the critic spoke poorly of one of his movies. He did win the duel in front of journalists and photographers. The film, called 56 Rue Pigalle, was a success, and when it was released on DVD years later, the duel footage was included in the extras. The journalist was not seriously injured, suffering only a small cut on the arm. Even though Japan ranks 62 in terms of land area and 10th in terms of world population, it ranks 3rd in the largest economy, after the United States and China. In addition, it ranks second in life expectancy. The kiosks or apps where you can easily order at fast food restaurants are not there to make things more convenient or to have fewer employees. In reality, they are there to make people buy more. It has been proven that people tend to order more items when they do not interact directly with a human. Nine-time Olympic gold medalist Mark Spitz once told the Russian swimming coach that his mustache helped him increase speed in the water. 4 years later, at the next Olympic Games, the entire Russian swimming team wore mustaches. Spitz had said it as a joke. During World War II, the company Bicycle, which specializes in manufacturing playing cards, made special cards in collaboration with the United States and British armies. Between the two layers of paper, the cards contained a secret map that could be used to escape from prisons in Germany. They only had to be submerged in water for the map to be revealed. Once, the street artist Banksy set up a stand in New York where he sold his works for $60. Only 3 people bought them. Those pieces are now valued at more than $250,000. The engineer Robert Goddard invented the first liquid-fueled rocket in 1919, with the goal of someday reaching the moon. This led to mockery from some publications, such as the New York Times. Later, when Apollo 11 reached the moon, the newspaper published an apology, and Goddard is now considered one of the pioneers of space travel. Charles Lindbergh was the first person to cross the Atlantic Ocean in an airplane in a non-stop flight in 1927. A few years later, he surprised many people when he stated that during the flight, some creatures called gremlins appeared in the cockpit and gave him aviation tips that helped him arrive, which were most likely hallucinations. The first acting job of Dwayne Johnson, also known as The Rock, in something other than professional wrestling was on the series That 70s Show, where he made an appearance portraying his father, Rocky Johnson, in the 70s. During breaks while filming the movie Planet of the Apes in 1968, actors dressed as chimpanzees only socialized with others dressed the same way, and those dressed as gorillas did the same. This was not a director's instruction. It simply happened. Michael Jackson patented the special shoes that were made for the move where he leaned forward 45 degrees. The shoes could hook onto screws fixed to the stage, but their design had to be changed after they failed during a concert in 1996 and the singer fell. Trains have a special sand storage system that can be spread in front of the wheels as they move forward. This is used to reduce the risk of derailment when traveling on slippery or difficult tracks. Despite switching from analog to digital television in 2012, South Korea has an area where analog television signals are still used. This area is near the border with North Korea and is maintained for North Koreans who secretly watch South Korean television. The country of India recognizes dolphins as non-human persons and is one of 4 countries where the import and export of cetaceans, such as whales or narwhals for entertainment purposes, is prohibited. The animated Super Mario Bros. Movie was originally going to be produced by Sony, which came close to reaching an agreement with Nintendo in 2014. They had even chosen a director, but the plan fell apart due to an information leak that affected Sony, in addition to the fact that Sony is Nintendo's main competitor in the video game industry. The movie is now set to be released in 2023 and will be made by Universal and Illumination. The giant pandas found around the world still belong to China. Generally, to rent a pair and display them in a zoo, a fee of $1 million per year must be paid under 10-year contracts. This money goes to foundations for the conservation of the species. In the Queensland region of Australia, it is illegal to own a pet rabbit unless you can prove that you are a magician. This is because if the species were to spread in that area, it could cause an imbalance in the ecosystem. There is a 16-story building in Osaka, Japan, through which a highway passes on the 5th, 6th, and 7th floors. When the highway was being built, an agreement could not be reached over acquiring the land, and the owners wanted to build the building, so an arrangement was made to construct both. Before modern medicine discovered how the circulatory system works, people believed there was a vein that went directly from the ring finger of the left hand to the heart. This is why there is a tradition of wearing wedding rings on that finger. The first time Beethoven performed the Ninth Symphony, it had such an impact on the audience that the standing ovation lasted for an extremely long time. The police even had to intervene, since only members of royalty were allowed to receive that level of applause. In the United States, it is common to use a system that disposes of organic waste through the kitchen sink drain using a garbage disposal. However, because it uses too much water and can clog pipes, it is rarely used in other countries. In places such as Austria, Portugal, and the Netherlands, it is even prohibited. There is a plant called Psychotria elata that has flowers known as the hot lips flower. It grows in Central and South America and is used as a medicinal plant to treat certain ailments, such as ear pain. It is also called flaming lips. The red part is actually leaves that look that way for a short time before giving way to the flower buds. The costume designer for the movie Batman vs. Superman, Jose Fernandez, was in charge of designing the uniforms for SpaceX astronauts, with the instruction that they should look heroic. At first, Fernandez did not know what SpaceX was and thought it was for a movie. The longest-lasting musical piece of all began in 2001 and is still being played today. It is called As Slow as Possible and is being performed on an organ in a church in Germany. It is scheduled to end in the year 2640, and every time the note changes every few years, large crowds gather at the location. The best-selling manga or Japanese comic of all time that is still being published is One Piece, which began in 1997 and currently has 103 volumes and more than 516 million copies sold. During World War II, many candy companies donated their sugar so that Lifesavers candies could continue to be produced and sent to soldiers to remind them of home. Oranges are usually sold at the supermarket in red mesh bags. This is done so the fruit appears more vibrant in color thanks to the Monker optical illusion, an effect that leads the brain to organize information according to the perceived luminance of an object. It is something that truly fools our brain. In 2013, a man in Sweden escaped from prison one day before his sentence ended because he had a toothache. He went to the dentist, and once the pain was gone, he returned to prison to finish his final day. 1 week after the release of Eminem's music video Just Lose It, in which he mocked Michael Jackson and his controversies involving plastic surgery and legal issues, Jackson himself called into a radio show to say that he was angry and that he had stopped admiring Eminem as an artist for attacking him. The reason perfume is usually applied to the neck and wrists is that these are key points that stay warm, and being exposed can release fragrance continuously. Another ideal place to apply perfume would be behind the knees. Our solar system, the Milky Way, is classified as an unusual system because it has only one star, the Sun. In general, more than half of the stars in the universe are in groups of 2 or 3 and share gravitational effects. The protagonist of the video game Half-Life, in its prototype version, was a rugged, bearded man called Ivan the Space Biker. But as production progressed, he was replaced by the iconic Gordon Freeman that everyone knows. When the movie Assassin's Creed failed at the box office in 2016, Disney ordered the cancellation of other video game movie productions that were being developed at the Fox studio it had acquired, including a Mega Man movie and a movie based on The Sims. There is a heavy metal band in Finland whose members are dinosaurs. It is called Heavisaurus and is very popular among both children and adults. They have been performing for more than 10 years. The element selenium conducts electricity only when light is shining on it or in a very bright environment, while in darkness it does the opposite. It is an insulator used in industries such as glassmaking and as a chemical catalyst. Scientists believe that multicellular life on planet Earth has only 800 million years remaining. At that point, there will no longer be enough carbon dioxide in the atmosphere for photosynthesis to occur. A study was conducted in 2017 in Scotland that examined the effects of music on dogs. Different musical genres were played for them, and their behavior was observed. The conclusion was that they responded best to reggae music and soft rock. When the book Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was released in 1997, it became the first book to sell more than 100 million copies in over 40 years. The previous one had been The Lord of the Rings in 1955. The artist who created the facial tattoo of boxer Mike Tyson sued Warner Brothers because the character played by Ed Helms gets the same tattoo in the movie The Hangover Part 2. He dropped the lawsuit after reaching a financial settlement with the company. The word Yakuza, used to refer to Japanese gangsters, comes from the numbers 8, 9, and 3, Ya-ku-za, which is the worst possible combination in the Oicho Kabu card game. Astronaut Scott Kelly became younger than his twin brother Mark Kelly, who is also an astronaut, even though he was born 6 minutes earlier. This is because he spent 1 year on a mission aboard the International Space Station at very high speed, and due to Einstein's theory of relativity, time passed more slowly for him by a difference of milliseconds each day, which accumulated into a difference of just over 6 minutes. Director Sam Raimi had planned a cameo by Wolverine in the movie Spider-Man. Actor Hugh Jackman had even flown to New York to film the scene, but according to Raimi, it could not be done because they could not find Wolverine's costume. Ninjas never actually dressed in black, which is the image we have of them through entertainment. In reality, the darkest color they wore was blue, and they usually dressed like ordinary people in order to blend in. The Michelin Man, the mascot of Michelin tires, was created before tires were black, which is why he is white. Before 1912, car tires were light-colored, but later carbon was added so they would last longer and the rubber would be stronger. Darryl Green, one of the fastest players in NFL history, admitted that he always put Tootsie Rolls candy in his socks before games because he believed it made him run faster. Thanks to efficiency in the manufacturing process of the Ford Model T automobile, which was constantly improved, its price dropped from $829 in 1909 to $260 in 1925. North Korea uses a different calendar than the one used in other regions of the world. Year one of its calendar began in the year the country's founder, Kim Il-sung, was born, in 1912. In 2006, a reality show called Unanimous was created, in which 9 strangers were locked inside a bunker for an indefinite amount of time and could only leave once they unanimously decided who among them would keep the prize of $1.5 million. However, the longer it took, the more the prize money was reduced, and in the end, the winner left with only $382,000. Carrots do not actually improve your eyesight. This is a myth that became popular during World War II due to propaganda from the United Kingdom, which had invented a new type of radar that helped them identify German bombers. To keep it secret, they claimed their pilot's success was due to a diet high in carrots. One of the tests that Japanese chefs who want to learn how to prepare pufferfish must pass, which is one of the most potentially poisonous dishes, is eating a pufferfish that they themselves have prepared to prove that they are serious. Pop Rocks candy is made by applying very high pressure to melted candy syrup with carbon dioxide, which traps tiny gas bubbles that are released when they come into contact with saliva, producing the characteristic popping sound. Singer Ariana Grande got a tattoo in Japanese on the palm of her hand in honor of her song Seven Rings. But due to a writing error, the tattoo actually said "shichirin," which is a type of charcoal grill. She corrected it shortly afterward. When a team of engineers was building a bridge connecting Germany and Switzerland, they realized there was a difference of 21.2 inches when the two halves met in the middle. This error occurred because Germany measures sea level based on the North Sea and Switzerland on the Mediterranean Sea, which due to gravity have a difference of 88.5 feet, and someone added that difference instead of subtracting it. According to Hinduism, science offers only a limited view of reality, but at the same time, everything it says is correct, allowing religion to have no contradiction with science. For this reason, the vast majority of Hindus accept the theory of evolution as fact. In the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the characters barely blink during the scenes. This was done intentionally to evoke the style of the comic, where this natural eye movement cannot be observed. In the movie Cars, a car with the Apple logo and the number 84 appears for a few seconds. This car was added in honor of Steve Jobs, who was one of the early investors in Pixar and served as its CEO until 2006. The number 84 is because the first Macintosh computer was released in 1984. NASA developed a thermal coating so efficient that it allows a person to hold in their hand a material heated to more than 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. This special coating is made of quartz glass fibers, and 94% of its volume is simply air. In 2013, a survey revealed that 91% of citizens in China supported banning the sale of shark fins for use in food and medicine. This was due to a campaign led by former NBA basketball player Yao Ming. The writer George R.R. Martin, known for the books of the series A Song of Ice and Fire, on which the series Game of Thrones is based, once mentioned that he still wrote his books on a computer using the DOS operating system and the software WordStar 4, which was released in 1978. The United States Air Force managed to save more than 10% on fuel, equivalent to millions of dollars, thanks to the fact that about 10 years ago, they copied the V formation used by geese when flying. The German city of Wolfsburg was built entirely to house employees of the Volkswagen automobile factory, which, to this day, remains one of the largest factories in the world. There is a product called Head-On that is similar to an adhesive stick, except that it contains a headache remedy that became famous in 2006, when they released a commercial that repeated the phrase, "head on, apply directly to the forehead." But according to clinical analyses, it is considered only a placebo and not a medication. In 1997, three men from Yemen attempted to sue NASA for invading Mars. They claimed it belonged to them because it had been inherited from their ancestors 3,000 years ago, based on mythological writings. The lawsuit did not proceed. Synchronized swimming athletes are among those who suffer the most concussions, even more than many contact sports. This is because mistakes can result in being accidentally kicked in the head by a teammate. The longest police chase lasted almost 2 consecutive days and covered approximately 619 miles. It began in Germany and ended in Ukraine. It took place in April of 2002. Competitive eaters who usually win eating contests for eating the most or the fastest are all thin, despite the fact that eating a lot is associated with being overweight. This is because not having excess fat around their organs allows their stomachs to expand more. In most of the world, paper is sold in sizes ranging from A0 to A10. Each size is half the area of the previous one, and they all maintain the same aspect ratio. However, in some countries, only letter size and legal size are used, which differ only in length and not in width. There are currently 31 GPS satellites in orbit around the planet, and all of them are equipped with an atomic clock capable of measuring time with an accuracy of 1 second divided by 1 billion. There is an attachment that can be added to train tracks that is designed specifically to cause a derailment. It is usually used in areas such as borders between countries where they do not want any unidentified train to pass through. There are 1,750 species of cactus, of which 1,749 are native to the American continent. The only cactus that naturally grows elsewhere, according to botanical records, is Rhipsalis bacifera, which is found throughout the tropics of Africa and in Sri Lanka, although it is believed to have reached the other side of the world through bird migration or on trading ships centuries ago. In 1997, Pepsi held a contest in which the winner would receive a replica of the Simpsons house, or could instead choose $75,000. The winner chose the money. The house, which cost $120,000 to build, was remodeled to look like a normal property and was then sold. While the movie Leon the Professional was being filmed, a thief who had just run out of a store turned himself into police officers who were actually extras filming a scene. This attracted the attention of real police officers, who then captured him. The petals of sunflowers are actually a complete flower, made up of a single petal that is joined together with many other flowers, which means sunflowers are a cluster of flowers naturally attached. The giant checks commonly used at award events or charity donations are not just for the photo. In theory, they can be cashed at most banks. However, an extra fee may be charged for the service. In 2007, a new species of frog was discovered in Colombia and named the nurse frog Niputidia. It is native to the Magdalena River Valley, and yes, it was named that way because they literally did not know what name to give it. It truly exists and is officially registered. Its scientific name is Allobates niputidia. Crows are so intelligent that they can pass the marshmallow test, which involves resisting the temptation to eat what they have if they know they will receive more food by waiting. This test has been done with young children to study how intelligence develops. The restaurant chain Domino's Pizza opened its first locations in Italy in 2015 and had plans to expand significantly. But due to factors such as the low popularity of Hawaiian pizza in the European country, Domino's closed the 30 locations it had in August of 2022. Something similar happened when Taco Bell tried to open locations in Mexico. Google makes changes and updates to its search engine algorithms every 17.5 hours on average. This means it is constantly changing, and the current version can be very different from the one a week ago, even though to users it appears identical. A high-fiber diet helps reduce cholesterol in an unexpected way. By interfering with bile absorption in the intestines, bile is naturally eliminated and the body produces more bile salts, which requires using stored cholesterol. Before attempting any diet, a professional should be consulted. What would become the first episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog was nominated at the Academy Awards in 1996 in the category of Best Animated Short Film. But the winner was a Wallace and Gromit short. However, this helped it become a full series with 52 episodes. In the Akita region of Japan, during the New Year, they hold a celebration in which local men put on costumes representing mountain demons and go out to scare children who are not doing well in school or who do not obey their parents. The NASA Vehicle Assembly Plant is such a large and spacious building that it needs more than 11 short tons of air conditioning equipment to prevent clouds from forming inside and creating a micro-ecosystem on humid days. Researchers found a rock in the 1950s that had the Olympic rings carved into it and believed the symbol dated back to ancient Greece. Shortly afterward, they realized the rock had actually been made for a ceremony at the 1936 Berlin Games and left behind. The Olympic rings logo was designed in 1912, which means it is not ancient. During World War II, the small city of Oak Ridge in Tennessee, United States, which had a population of 75,000 people at the time, used 14% of the country's total electricity consumption. This was because uranium was being processed there to build the atomic bomb. A gargoyle is the protruding part of a spout that serves to drain rainwater from rooftops, which were traditionally made in the shape of monsters. Because of this, true gargoyles are supposed to look like they are spitting water, although over time the term began to be used for any sculpture of a creature on buildings. Soccer balls with the black and white hexagon and pentagon pattern, which became the most popular ball style for many years, are based on how the Telstar satellite looked when it was launched in 1960, which made television broadcasts between the Americas and Europe possible. The first ball with this design was made by Adidas in 1970 and was also called Telstar. The prototype of the electric saw we know today, which is used in the woodworking industry, was invented in the 18th century by two doctors in Scotland who needed a tool to assist them during difficult childbirth procedures. All satellites orbiting the Earth must complete one full orbit in less than 7 months. If they do not, they drift off course and change direction toward the Sun's orbit, making them unusable. The small country of Palau is the only one in the world where tourists must sign an ecological pledge stamped in their passport, in which they commit to being more mindful of the local environment. The waffle-style shoe sole comes from shoes designed by Bill Bowerman, the founder of Nike, who literally poured rubber into his wife's waffle iron to make them. In 2008, a ship's anchor accidentally cut 2 underwater internet cables when it was dropped onto the seafloor. This caused Asia's internet traffic capacity to be reduced to 72% until it was repaired. Archaeological investigations carried out in the city of Pompeii, which was buried by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in the year 79, revealed that there was a restaurant offering a giraffe leg dish. Apparently, it was considered an exotic but popular food at the time. Red pandas are actually the original pandas. They were scientifically classified in 1825, while giant pandas acquired the name panda many years later. Today, red pandas are in a more endangered state than giant pandas. Before becoming an app that identifies songs, Shazam was a phone service you could call when you wanted to know the name of a song, and the result would arrive shortly afterward by text message. Singapore was the first country to introduce an electronic system to collect highway tolls in 1975. This helped ease traffic congestion. After that, many other cities, including London and Stockholm, implemented similar systems. They copied it. If someone wanted to build a pyramid similar to the Great Pyramid of Egypt using concrete blocks, it is estimated that construction would take about 5 years and cost $5 billion. The underground city of Derinkuyu in Turkey was used for centuries by people as a home or refuge until it was closed at the beginning of the 20th century. In 1963, it was reopened by a man who was knocking down a wall to make his house bigger, and from that time on, it was open to the public as a museum. The population of the city of Rome reached a peak of 1 million when Augustus was emperor during the Roman Empire about 2,000 years ago, but it declined when the empire fell. It was not until the early 1930s that the city surpassed 1 million residents again. Nicosia, the capital of Cyprus, is the only capital city in the world that has 2 different time zones, and it has been this way for 40 years due to a conflict that caused its division. It is also one of the few capitals without an airport. At the 1958 World's Fair, the original manuscript of Mozart's Requiem was displayed, and during the time it was there, someone took it and tore off a piece containing a musical inscription believed to be the last thing Mozart ever wrote in his life. To this day, nothing is known about this missing fragment. Most packaged fruit juices sold that are labeled as pear, strawberry, mango, or peach are actually apple juice with flavorings or with a small percentage of real juice concentrate. To avoid this, you only need to read the ingredients on the label. The animated series Rick and Morty is made using only 3 computer programs that are available to anyone at affordable prices. For animation, they use Toon Boom Harmony. For background art, they use Photoshop. And for post-production, effects, and touch-ups, they use After Effects. However, it still takes a team of 50 artists and animators to produce the episodes. The longest sushi roll ever made measured 9,330 feet. It was made in 2016, and more than 400 people helped prepare it. According to Matt Groening, the Fox television network never supported the series Futurama, and even changed its time slot several times to deliberately confuse viewers, which resulted in its cancellation in 2003. Despite this, it returned with more seasons and movies in later years, and in 2023, 20 new episodes are set to be released. The Inuit had their own version of sunglasses 2,000 years ago. They were made of ivory and had a small horizontal opening to block most of the sunlight reflected by the snow and allow better vision. Music is found in every human culture around the world, without exception. Other universal phenomena include personal names and proverbs or traditional sayings. All cultures have them. In 1954, Queen Elizabeth II was accidentally filmed while arguing with her husband, Prince Philip. While playing tennis, she threw some shoes and a racket at him. This happened during a visit to Australia. Reporters were required to destroy the footage out of respect, although at first, they did not want to. The reason the Dubai police include luxury patrol cars such as a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, and a Bentley is because there are many fast cars in the area, and regular patrol vehicles would not be able to chase them if they exceed the speed limit. Volcanoes provide mineral nutrients to nearby soil, helping make it more fertile. They also heat the environment, promoting the preservation of nearby habitats, and many populations have also used them to generate energy and work with metals. Iceland is located on the mid-Atlantic ridge, where the North American and European tectonic plates meet, so this country could be considered part of both America and Europe at the same time. It is the only place in the world where you can walk between the two sides. The famous dodo bird, which went extinct in 1662, was actually a species very similar to pigeons. However, because it lived on an island without predators, it lost the ability to fly and grew much larger over thousands of years. This evolutionary response is known as island gigantism. Before the 2002 elections for mayor of Poland's capital, Warsaw, the candidates competed in a game of SimCity 3000, where they were given a map similar to the real city to see how they would improve it. The candidate who won the game also won the election and later became the president of Poland. The first gardens were used specifically to grow edible plants and medicinal herbs. It was not until 3,500 years ago that gardens began to be made solely for decorative purposes. Media coverage of the assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963 coincided with the day the first episode of Doctor Who aired. As a result, the BBC decided to rebroadcast it 1 week later after realizing that almost no one had seen it. 1 out of every 10 people in Iceland will publish at least 1 book during their lifetime. This country has more writers, more books published, and more books read per person than any other place on the planet. A study conducted in the Netherlands concluded that if there is graffiti painted in a neighborhood, people tend to litter twice as much. In addition, more thefts occur. In the entire country of Afghanistan, there is only 1 pig. Its name is Khanzir, which means pig in Arabic, and it lives at the Kabul Zoo. Pigs are considered forbidden in that country for religious reasons. Former president of Liberia, Charles King, holds the record for the most fraudulent election of all time. He won the presidential election in 1927 with more than 234,000 votes in a country that had only 15,000 possible voters. The first recorded representation of Halley's Comet in all of history is found in the Bayeux Tapestry, a cloth made in France between the years 1082 and 1096, where several people can be seen pointing at the comet in the sky. If you fail your driving test 3 times in Switzerland, you will be assigned a psychologist so they can determine the reason for your failures. Once the psychologist reports that you are fit to take the test again, you may try 1 more time. The company Mozilla, the creators of the Firefox browser, discovered in a test that simply offering an option to donate money in Bitcoin caused donations overall to decrease by an average of 7.5%. The government of Poland awards a special commemorative medal for long marital life to couples who surpass 50 years of marriage with at least one child, whether biological or adopted. Praying mantises are the only animals known in nature that have only one ear. It is located on the lower part of their body. They hear at a different frequency than humans, and according to studies, the ear helps them detect bats and escape, but it has no other apparent use. It would be equivalent to humans having an ear on the sternum. The Soviet Union refused to hold the Paralympic Games that were supposed to take place after the Moscow 1980 Olympic Games. The event had to be held in the Netherlands. Bruce Lee won a state cha-cha-cha dance competition in Hong Kong in 1958 before moving to the United States. He once mentioned that he learned to dance that Cuban rhythm 1 year after he began learning Kung Fu. The border between the United States and Canada is the longest border in the world, and unlike other very long borders on the planet, it does not have military surveillance. The actor from the series Mr. Robot in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, Rami Malek, has an identical twin who works as a teacher named Sammy Malek. They have switched places a few times as a prank. Sign language is considered one of the 3 official languages of New Zealand. The other 2 are English and Maori. The sensation of goosebumps, commonly felt when listening to music, occurs because the brain releases dopamine while anticipating the climactic moment of a song. An empty cardboard box was added to the Toy Hall of Fame in New York in 2005 due to its reputation as an improvised toy for children. For many years since its launch in 2009, the language learning application Duolingo generated revenue by selling the texts that users translated while practicing languages phrase by phrase. Today, however, its income comes from in-app advertising and the paid version. The annual cycling competition, Giro d'Italia, had a prize for the person who finished in last place, which consisted of a black jersey. It was meant as a tradition, but cyclists began competing each year to see who would finish last, hiding in places and even puncturing their own tires, so the prize was awarded only 6 times before being canceled. Some Roman statues had their hair sculpted separately so it could be replaced. If the person being depicted changed their hairstyle, it could be updated more quickly and cheaply. Japan is one of the countries with the highest rate of adult adoption in the world. This mainly happens in families that wish to preserve their surname in companies if the biological generation is not up to the task, or if there is no successor. There are millions of stateless people, meaning they are not considered citizens by any country due to different conflicts, and it is extremely difficult for them to travel elsewhere because they cannot obtain a passport. To film scenes lit only by candlelight in the movie Barry Lyndon, director Stanley Kubrick used special camera lenses made by Carl Zeiss. Of the 10 that were produced, 3 were sold to Kubrick and the others to NASA, which commissioned them to photograph the dark side of the moon. 45 million years ago, Antarctica was a dense forest. This was discovered when fossilized turtle bones were found in the middle of the arid land of the South Pole. A study discovered that cockroaches can experience anxiety when compared with other cockroaches. When they were made to solve difficult mazes, researchers found that they took longer if other insects were watching them. To this day, we have not discovered another planet that has total solar eclipses of its sun or equivalent star in its solar system in the same way they occur on Earth. This is so rare that astronomers call it a cosmic coincidence, since the moon and the sun must have a specific size and be at an exact distance for it to happen. In 1981, India launched its first communication satellite. To transport it, they used a cart pulled by an ox, and the rocket parts were carried by bicycle to the launch site, where the launch was successfully carried out. The computer that helped land the Apollo 11 capsule on the moon in 1969 had only 2 megahertz of processing power, 4 kilobytes of RAM, and 72 kilobytes of storage. These specifications are less than what a modern calculator has today. On average, baseball games have only 18 minutes of action out of the 3 hours they last. 90% of the game consists of players standing still without moving. The global rise in popularity of contemporary South Korean culture that has occurred since the 1990s has been called the Korean Wave, and it has been partially funded by that country's government. Since the 21st century, it has been a phenomenon that has impacted industries such as film, music, technology, and fashion worldwide. The Colca Canyon, located in Peru, is approximately 13,650 feet deep, more than twice as deep as the Grand Canyon in the United States. The longest boxing match in history lasted 110 3-minute rounds for a total duration of 7 hours 19 minutes between Andy Bowen and Jack Burke in 1893. It was stopped and declared a draw by the referee because there came a point when they could no longer stand up from their corners due to exhaustion. According to a study, people cough more than twice as often as normal at classical music concerts, and coughing increases when complex or atonal music is played. It is believed this happens because people who attend and do not enjoy the music become distracted or bored, and coughing is one of the body's natural responses, even if it is not intentional. The production team on the movie Jurassic Park reported that the giant T-Rex animatronic had malfunctions that caused it to turn on randomly and move, something that frightened the entire crew on several occasions while they were on lunch break. British tanks are required by design specifications to include a special station for making tea. Treasure hunter Tommy Gregory Thompson discovered, along with his team, the ship SS Central America in 1988, which sank in 1857, carrying an amount of gold equivalent to $1 billion. However, it is not known exactly where he put the treasure, and he did not pay his team or the investors of the expedition. He is currently in prison and will not be released until he pays his debts. Basketball player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar made only one three-point shot in his entire 20-year career, during which he won the NBA championship 6 times. To this day, he is considered one of the greatest basketball players in history. According to studies, people who often play video games are more likely to have lucid dreams. As we know, lucid dreaming is when, within a dream, you realize that you are dreaming and can control what happens around you. Through a process called grafting, it is possible to make a single tree produce 2 or more different fruits. You simply attach a branch from another variety to an existing tree and wait for them to fuse. This has led to the creation of trees that produce up to 40 different fruits. The video game Space Invaders generated $13 billion in revenue, adjusted for inflation, all in just 4 years from 1978 to 1982, thanks to coin-operated arcade machines. This makes it the video game and entertainment product that has generated the most money of all time. Colonel Sanders was not from Kentucky. He was actually born in Indiana. He was 62 years old and bankrupt when he opened the first Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant, and this happened in Salt Lake City, Utah. The city of Olney, Illinois, United States, is considered the world capital of albino squirrels. Drivers must always yield to them, and if they injure one with their vehicle, they must pay a fine of $500. The boy bands Backstreet Boys and NSYNC had the same manager who carried out a scam and took $300 million that belonged to investors. This individual was imprisoned for fraud in 2008. In the United States, there are 910 automobiles for every 1,000 inhabitants. This is almost 1 car per person. Nowhere else are there so many cars. For example, European countries have an average of 587 cars per 1,000 people. Apple orchards often rent thousands of bees along with their hives, brought in by beekeepers specifically to pollinate the flowers so fruit can grow. A couple of weeks later, the bees are collected and taken to the next orchard. The first appearance of the character Boba Fett was not in the 1980 movie The Empire Strikes Back. He had actually appeared 2 years earlier in the Star Wars holiday special that was filmed for television, but only as a low-quality animated drawing. In German folklore, Santa Claus usually brings gifts to children as he is known around the world, but he also has different alter egos, including Schmutzi and Belchnickel, which are like his evil versions that not only bring gifts, but also carry sticks to punish those who misbehaved during the year. A German soldier named Hermann Detzner became famous for supposedly escaping British troops in New Guinea during World War I, and later wrote a book titled 4 Years Among the Cannibals. It described all the adventures he experienced. Until years later, he admitted that most of the book had been invented, and that he had only been hiding in one place. An American gymnast named George Iser competed in the 1904 Olympic Games with a wooden leg. Even so, he won 3 gold medals, 2 silver medals, and 1 bronze medal in events such as rope climbing, parallel bars, and horizontal bar. In Stockholm, Sweden, a high-speed experimental lottery was once carried out in which drivers who obeyed the speed limit when passing automatic ticket cameras were entered into a cash raffle funded directly by the fines paid by speeding drivers. George Lucas planned to make 11 more Star Wars movies after the success of the first one, And the character Boba Fett was created to be the main villain of the trilogy. However, when it was decided that there would only be 3 movies, his importance was reduced, and he met an abrupt end. There is a wave that never stops at the mouth of the Amazon River in Brazil, created by the collision of freshwater and saltwater. This phenomenon is known as the Pororoca and attracts tourists every year, especially surfing enthusiasts who can ride the same wave for minutes without falling. The ginkgo biloba tree is considered a living fossil. Fossils of this species more than 290 million years old have been found, and it has barely changed since then. All other species of its class and of the ginkgo genus have long been extinct. The actor Samuel L. Jackson was supposed to have an afro hairstyle in the movie Pulp Fiction, so the production sent an assistant to get a wig he could use. However, the assistant did not know the difference between an afro and a jerry curl style. Since there was no time to replace it, it stayed that way. The Mexican YouTuber Luisito Comunica has visited more than 50 countries, ending up with 3 passports. However, the record for the YouTuber who has visited the most countries belongs to Drew Binsky, who managed to visit all 197 countries recognized by the United Nations. In many of them, however, he only stayed briefly while passing through to reach another country. According to a study in Manhattan, 72% of people use public transportation, and the remaining 18% use their own car to commute to work. This figure is very different from the average in the United States, where only 5% of people use public transportation to get to work. In the late 1990s, there was a television show in Russia called The Interception, in which contestants had to steal a car. If they succeeded without being caught by the police and in less than 35 minutes, they were given the car. But if they failed, they were arrested. The MTV television show Punk'd, where celebrities were pranked, was originally called Harassment, and the pranks were done on ordinary people. The format was changed after a couple sued them for $10 million following an especially harsh prank. The true color of the sun is white. That is how it appears from high altitude or from space. But when viewed from our perspective, the atmosphere causes it to appear yellowish. We should never look directly at the sun because it can damage our eyesight. It is better to look at it in photographs. According to a study, people who go grocery shopping are 7% more likely to buy junk food if they bring their own bags instead of using disposable bags. They are also 13% more likely to buy organic products. In Belgium, voting is mandatory, and citizens are automatically registered to do so. More than 90% of the population goes to vote to avoid fines. The world produces enough food for all humans thanks to advances in agriculture. It is estimated that 2,720 kilocalories per person are produced per day. The problem lies in how it is distributed. While filming the movie Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, actress Helena Bonham Carter came up with the idea of putting her magic wand into actor Matthew Lewis's ear to make the scene where her character had to torture him look more realistic. However, Lewis moved when he heard an explosion, and the wand perforated his eardrum. He could not hear anything for 1 week, but after that, he recovered. In Africa, more people have access to mobile phone services than to basic services such as drinking water and electricity. In early versions of the script for the movie Star Wars, some stormtroopers carried lightsabers, and there were also female stormtroopers, but this was quickly discarded. These ideas were later revisited in the 2015 movie The Force Awakens with the character Captain Phasma. The city of New York once had a pneumatic tube network used to send letters and small packages that, in 1953, the year it was most used, measured more than 26.7 miles, connected 23 post offices, and sent almost 100,000 letters per day. Samsung had the opportunity to buy the Android operating system in 2004, but they did not because they did not see enough potential. Today, it is the most widely used mobile operating system in the world. The first episode of South Park was accidentally included on the discs of the PlayStation game Tiger Woods PGA Tour 99. The episode was used only as test data, but it could be viewed if the disc was inserted into a PC. The game had to be reissued, but many copies containing the episode still exist. In 2013, a man got a tattoo with the word Netflix and tweeted it to the company. Shortly afterward, they replied and gave him 1 year of service. A jumping spider named Nefertiti learned how to hunt its food in zero gravity as part of an experiment on the International Space Station. The spider adapted by learning to walk slowly instead of jumping. The unemployment rate in the African country of Zimbabwe is 95%, the highest in the world. This means that almost no one has formal employment to be counted in this statistic. Astronomers have a theory that the spiral shape of the galaxy where our solar system is located, the Milky Way, is due to the fact that 2 billion years ago it absorbed a dwarf galaxy. Washing your hands with hot water does not remove more bacteria than washing them with cold water, as some people believe. Water temperature only destroys bacteria when it reaches the boiling point. Stress can cause people to perform poorly in their activities, since it often occupies brain activity that we would normally use for the tasks we need to complete. This is according to research by experts. The hydrogen contained in the core of the planet Saturn is so dense that it becomes metal. It is believed that metallic hydrogen could exist as a liquid rather than a solid under high temperature conditions. Scientists have attempted to create it on planet Earth many times, but have not succeeded. The English novelist Charlotte Brontë wrote most of her early works in almost microscopic handwriting. One of her manuscripts contains 4,000 words across 19 pages and is so small that it can fit in the palm of your hand. Bees have such a high density of hair that they have approximately the same amount as squirrels, 3 million individual hairs. In comparison, humans have an average of 100,000 hairs on their head. The first distance limit established to separate territorial waters from international waters in the 17th century was 3.1 miles under the cannon shot rule, since that was the distance a cannonball could travel at the time. There is a store in Canada called Child's Own Studio, where children's drawings are turned into real fabric toys, including all their details. 75% of all the flamingos in the world live in Lake Natron in Tanzania. The water is so salty that humans cannot swim there without seriously damaging their skin. There are also toxic algae in that location. There are only 3 sports in which the United States has never won an Olympic medal: handball, badminton, and table tennis, sports that are dominated by other countries such as China. Arnold Schwarzenegger was not allowed to dub his own voice in the German version of Terminator because the producers considered that his Austrian accent, the country where he was born, was not tough enough. Despite the First World War having ended more than 100 years ago, in France, more than approximately 992 short tons of unexploded ammunition are still recovered each year in regions where battles took place. Some years ago, actor Johnny Depp sued the managers of his finances because they were not legally obligated to act in his best interest and were making poor financial decisions. In the 1990s, the government of South Africa dismantled all the nuclear weapons it had manufactured and possessed. It became the first nation in the world to do this voluntarily. More than 3,000 years ago, before any method existed to observe microorganisms, the Roman scholar Marcus Varro described bacteria by stating that they were tiny creatures that enter the body through the mouth or nose and cause disease. More than 1,500 years had to pass before his theory was finally confirmed. The record for the Instagram account that reached 1 million followers the fastest belongs to Kim Tae-hyung, also known as V, a member of the Korean pop band BTS. He reached 1 million followers 43 minutes after opening his account on December 6, 2021. The wheat and barley we know today are selectively cultivated versions of grains that existed in nature for thousands of years. It is believed that beer was the true inspiration behind this process and behind the development of agriculture in general. The photon sphere is a spherical region in space where gravity is so strong that photons must travel in orbits. If you could transport yourself to that region and look forward, you would see the back of your own head due to the optical effect that occurs. In 1955, medical researcher Jonas Salk decided not to patent his polio vaccine for the greater good of humanity. Had he done so, he would have earned approximately $7 billion. His discovery saved millions of lives. The Tetris effect refers to when a person dedicates so much time and attention to an activity that it causes them to form patterns in their thoughts, as well as mental images and dreams. This often happens to people who play too many video games such as Tetris. According to a study, 60% of retired NBA players are in financial bankruptcy just 5 years after leaving the league. In the 1980s, mysterious plaques appeared in the pavement in the United States and in cities in South America called Toynbee tiles, which contained cryptic messages about resurrecting the dead on Jupiter. So far, more than 300 have been discovered, and they are believed to be an urban art movement. Lake Kivu, located in Rwanda, is one of only 3 known lakes in the world capable of a limnic eruption, which are events where carbon dioxide is suddenly released, killing all animals and people nearby. It is believed this occurs every 1,000 years. More than 2 million people currently live near this lake. According to a study, flowers that are exposed to the sound of a bee's flight played through speakers produce sweeter nectar in just 3 minutes, containing on average 20% more sugar concentration. The Lamborghini Aventador has special explosive charges to detach the doors in case the car flips over. This is because the doors on this model only open upward, making it impossible for someone to open them while upside down. The longest scientific study is the Grand Study, which lasted more than 75 years. It followed the lives of Harvard University graduates and reached conclusions such as that living with joy is just as important as living healthily and having good genes, and that the people who became the most successful were those who helped the most with household chores when they were children. The meter used in the poem The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe is called trochaic octameter, and it is very uncommon to find it in literary works. Incidentally, the song Womanizer by Britney Spears uses this same meter in the chorus. In 2017, an 8-year-old boy learned how to drive by watching YouTube tutorials so he could go to McDonald's for a hamburger. He managed to get there by perfectly following traffic rules and bought the hamburger with money he had saved in his piggy bank. On his way back home, police officers found him and contacted his parents. A speech had already been prepared in case the Apollo mission failed in 1969, and astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were stranded on the moon. In 2020, a YouTube video went viral showing Richard Nixon delivering that speech using deepfake technology and computer-generated voice to demonstrate what that scenario would have been like. At the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, German athletes who won a medal were given a prize by the government consisting of all the beer they want for life. The city of Montreal in Canada took 30 years to fully pay off the debt from the cost of hosting the 1976 Olympic Games, including the construction of the stadiums, and at times, it was on the verge of bankruptcy. With the endowment fund of Harvard University, which has more than $37 billion, it would be able to pay the tuition of all students using only the interest it generates. Albert Einstein's last words were lost forever. This is because he spoke them in German, and the nurse caring for him at the time did not speak that language. A computer hard drive manufacturing company called Miniscribe was having financial problems in the late 1980s, so they filled their boxes with 26,000 bricks to make shareholders believe they did not have an inventory shortage. They were discovered shortly after, and the company went bankrupt. There is a bank in Dubai that offers a credit card embedded with diamonds. It is promoted as the most prestigious and exclusive card in the world. The company Toyota produced only 2 special convertible 2000 GT cars for the 1967 James Bond movie You Only Live Twice, because actor Sean Connery did not fit in the car with the roof on. Today, these cars are worth millions of dollars. Vin Diesel named his daughter Pauline in honor of Paul Walker, who co-starred with Diesel in the Fast and Furious franchise and died in a car accident in 2013. The billionaire businessman Jerry Henderson had an underground mansion built in Las Vegas in 1964 to protect himself from a possible war. The house, with 16,146 square feet, includes areas that simulate being outdoors and even a swimming pool. Soccer players in Turkey have their first name on the back of their jerseys instead of their last name. This is because soccer was played in Turkey before surnames were used, which began in 1934. In ancient times, if you wanted to measure a very long distance, for example, from one city to another, you could hire specialized people called bemetists who walked while counting their steps to calculate distances of hundreds of miles with 95% accuracy. Alexander the Great brought bemetists along on his campaigns across Asia. Each year, around 12 rats enter the region of Alberta in Canada, but they are captured by animal control before they can establish themselves and multiply. Alberta is the largest rat-free region in the world. The company Microsoft earns $2 billion a year thanks to the Android operating system, even though it does not belong to them. This amount comes from royalties on certain patents they own that are used. The lemon-lime soda 7-Up originally contained lithium citrate, a compound used to treat mood disorders, but years later, this ingredient was removed. It is believed that its name comes from lithium's atomic mass, which is 7. Actor Antonio Banderas watched the premiere of the movie Puss in Boots, in which he voiced the main character, in an empty movie theater, accompanied by 25 cats wearing three-dimensional glasses. While the movie Sweeney Todd was being filmed, an orange-colored liquid was used as blood. This was done so it would look better with the film's desaturated color effect. The YouTuber Amar Kandil from the channel Just Theory had one of the most restricted passports in the world, the passport of Egypt, which only allows travel to 14 countries without a visa. This inspired him to obtain citizenship from a small Caribbean country called St. Kitts and Nevis in exchange for $150,000. His passport now allows him to travel to 83 countries without a visa. Anyone who has that amount of money can buy that citizenship. The first photo on Instagram to use the hashtag selfie was uploaded on January 27, 2011 by the user Jen Lee. It was the first day Instagram implemented the use of hashtags. For the movie The Little Mermaid from 2023, the hair of actress Halle Bailey was made entirely digital. The underwater scenes were filmed in front of a blue screen, and Bailey wore a cap with special markers. Later, digital effects artists added the water effect and the hair to give it greater realism. This same method was also used for the movie Aquaman. The Hercules beetle can lift the equivalent of 850 times its own weight, making it one of the strongest animals in the world. It would be like a human weighing approximately 176 pounds, lifting something around 150,000 pounds. The episode of The Simpsons titled Homer at the Bat is credited with having saved the lives of at least 2 people, because in one scene, Homer chokes on a donut, and a poster is shown on screen demonstrating the Heimlich maneuver used in those situations. Banana plants are mistakenly identified as trees. In reality, they are very large herbs because they do not have a persistent or woody stem, meaning they do not have a trunk. Sigourney Weaver's performance in the movie Alien earned her an Academy Award nomination. This was essentially the first time a woman was nominated for Best Actress in a science fiction and action film, as women had generally only been nominated in other genres. Epazote is used as a medicinal plant in Mexico and other Spanish-speaking countries, and in addition, it is commonly believed to help prevent gas caused by eating beans, which is why this ingredient is added when cooking them. There is a pagoda in Henan province in China that was built in the year 1049 by the Song dynasty and has survived 6 floods, 38 earthquakes, and many other disasters, yet it remains intact after nearly a millennium. Only 2 tablespoons of honey would theoretically be enough fuel for a bee to fly around the world. This is only in theory, since a bee could not actually complete the entire journey or store that amount of honey. A person can be considered more attractive when seen in a group of many people than when seen individually. This is because we tend to generalize the features of a group and instinctively consider average faces more attractive. The Netherlands is one of the leading countries in food production, despite its small territory, thanks to innovation in agricultural techniques. For example, to grow 1 kilogram of tomatoes, they use only 2.4 gallons of water, while the global average is 55.5 gallons per kilogram. Telephone directories in Iceland are organized by first name rather than last name, since in that country, surnames are formed from the father's name with the addition of son or daughter. Leonardo da Vinci was one of the earliest known figures in Europe during the Renaissance to support veganism based on the ethics of animal rights. It has also been mentioned that one of his habits was buying caged birds in order to release them. When instruments such as the triangle or cymbals are played in an orchestra, there is not just one person assigned to do it. In reality, this is the job of a percussionist who must master at least 35 different instruments and whose role can change during a concert. The month of July is named after Julius Caesar of the Roman Empire. It was previously called Quintilis, but when the Julian calendar was established, the name was changed because this politician was born in that month. Guide dogs must have the ability to disobey their owner if the command they are given puts them in danger, such as crossing a street where cars are still passing. This is known as intelligent disobedience. The distance between Europe and Africa is only about 9 miles at the narrowest point of the Strait of Gibraltar. It would theoretically be possible to build a tunnel or a bridge connecting the 2 continents. Mumbai in India is the only city in the world that has, within its urban limits, a national park wildlife reserve where large carnivores such as leopards and tigers live freely and are not in captivity and can walk into the city if they want to. Will Smith once mentioned that he was grateful for not having accepted the role of Neo in the movie The Matrix because he chose instead to star in Wild Wild West, arguing that, at the time, he was not mature enough as an actor. The ship SS Great Eastern had an incident similar to that of the Titanic. It struck an iceberg, but 50 years earlier, in 1862. Despite being nearly the same size as the famous ocean liner, the Great Eastern did not sink because it had a double hull, and the passengers were not even aware that it had collided. The most populated and largest city in the world, where French is spoken, is not Paris or Montreal. It is Kinshasa, the capital of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which has more than 13 million inhabitants. One of the earliest methods of artificial lighting in cities during the 19th century was carbon arc lamps, which were placed on very tall poles and worked by passing electric current from batteries through two nearby carbon rods that could reach temperatures of more than 7,200 degrees Fahrenheit. There is a Starbucks coffee shop on the Great Wall of China that is built inside a house with traditional local architectural style and offers an exclusive snack called dragon dumplings. Just like humans, dolphins cannot drink salt water, and the only liquid they consume comes directly from the food they eat. Technology companies that emerge in Nigeria often hide or change their IP address so that potential clients and investors cannot identify that they are from that country, since it has a bad reputation due to email fraud. The phrases at the end of the Guns N' Roses song, Sweet Child of Mine, are literal. Singer Axl Rose asked the producer, "Where do we go now?" because they did not know how to end the song. So the producer suggested that he say exactly that. Compounds similar to coal and petroleum have been found in the universe. This suggests that complex organic compounds are not exclusive to living organisms. Stars can also create them naturally. In ancient times, war pigs were used in battles to counter the power of war elephants, since elephants were frightened when they saw pigs. Scientists recreated an eye remedy found in a 9th century manuscript made from onion and garlic, and discovered that it could eliminate 90% of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Elephants are the animals that best understand when humans point at something. They do not just look at the hand as other species might. Dogs sometimes show understanding of this gesture as well, but they need prior interaction with humans to learn it. The method used to remove tattoos with lasers does not actually remove the tattoos themselves. Instead, it breaks down the pigments in the skin to help the immune system eliminate them naturally. Bruce Lee was a fan of boxer Muhammad Ali and watched all of his recorded fights over and over again. When he was once asked whether he would like to fight him, he said he would lose immediately because Ali's fists were too large. In 2011, the Detroit Symphony Orchestra was facing financial problems that put its existence at risk. After learning about this, the musician Kid Rock, known for making music that is the opposite of classical, organized a benefit concert and managed to raise $1 million for the orchestra. In the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka has a childhood memory in which his father tells him that some children can be allergic to chocolate, so he would not want to try it. The actor who played Wonka, Johnny Depp, actually had a real chocolate allergy in his childhood. Willy Wonka will be portrayed in the prequel to this story by actor Timothée Chalamet. The scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson was the captain of his school's wrestling team and later represented Harvard University in the same sport. In 2008, an entire beach was stolen in Jamaica. The equivalent of 500 truckloads of sand were taken, and to this day, it is not known who took it or where it was taken. The Pink Floyd album Atom Heart Mother on vinyl plays indefinitely when it reaches the end. Unlike most records, it includes a special groove that sends the needle back to the same position again and does not stop until it is manually removed. The retail chain Walmart has its own private satellite communications system. Until recently, it was the largest satellite network owned by a private company, but it was surpassed by SpaceX. The oldest musical instrument ever found is 43,000 years old. It is a flute made from a bear bone. It was created when Neanderthals still existed and before humans invented the wheel. The Great Smog of London was a 4-day period of environmental pollution in 1952, during which the city was completely covered by thick fog due to the use of fossil fuels in industry and heating. It is said that even movie theaters had to close because there was fog even indoors and people could not see the screen. In 2004, 6 British soldiers became trapped in caves in the state of Puebla in Mexico. They were stuck for 8 days after refusing local help until British divers arrived. This caused diplomatic tension between the two countries, as it was speculated that they were searching for uranium deposits. There are marine animals shaped like tubes that can grow longer than a blue whale. They are called pyrosomes and are actually composed of individual creatures that join together and work as a team. They are also bioluminescent and glow when other animals touch them. During World War II, a dog named Smokey helped save 250 men and 40 airplanes, thanks to the fact that he managed to run a cable through a tube about 8 inches in diameter to maintain communications and electrical power. The Happy Meal for McDonald's was invented at a franchise of this restaurant in Guatemala in 1974. The managers realized that children were not finishing full portions, so they offered smaller hamburgers and added a toy to the orders. The company Ray-Ban is responsible for the resurgence of Wayfarer-style sunglasses, which almost no one was wearing in the early 1980s. To counter this, they launched a campaign to have them appear in 60 movies and television shows each year. In 2004, Mark Zuckerberg offered Joe Green, his college roommate, the chance to drop out of school and join Facebook in exchange for shares in the company, but the offer was rejected. Today, those shares would be worth more than $10 billion. The current monarch of the United Kingdom, Charles III, belongs to a magic club called the Magic Circle, which he joined in 1975 after performing a demonstration with several magic tricks and techniques. The airport in Genoa, Italy, is one of the few where an exception allows liquids to be carried onto an airplane, but only if you are transporting pesto, the traditional sauce from that region. It must be scanned using a special pesto scanner. In Japan, on Valentine's Day, it is traditional for women to give chocolates to men at work. Coworkers who are not very popular receive low-quality chocolates called obligation chocolates or giri choco, while the most well-liked receive high-quality chocolates known as honmei choco. Once, inventor Nikola Tesla spent more than $2,000 building a device to support a pigeon so it could heal. It had one wing and one leg broken. When ducks are born, they adopt the characteristics of the first animal they interact with. If they see a human, they will think they are human as well and begin to behave that way. This is called imprinting. The sun is actually white, but it is perceived by humans on Earth as yellow thanks to the optical effect called Rayleigh scattering. This is the same effect that makes sunsets and sunrises appear pink and orange. The company Capcom developed a video game in 1990 based on the California Raisins advertising campaign to encourage people to consume more raisins. However, its release was canceled because raisin sales dropped significantly. In the state of Vermont in the United States, there are many houses with windows tilted at 45 degrees. They are traditionally called witch windows and are believed to have originated from the belief that witches could not enter on their flying brooms through a slanted window like that. Of all the apes that have been trained to communicate using sign language or other methods, none of them has ever managed to ask a question. This is said to be the main cognitive difference that separates them from humans. The YouTuber Jimmy Donaldson, known as Mr. Beast, who recently reached 100 million subscribers, purchased a studio of approximately 59,200 square feet in North Carolina, dedicated exclusively to making videos, which even includes an apartment where he lives. In 2004, Microsoft wanted to sue a student named Mike Rowe because he created a website called MikeRowesoft.com, and the company that owns Windows considered it phonetically similar to its name. In the end, the dispute was resolved when they offered him an Xbox and money in exchange for the domain. Most beverages you buy in stores contain a small amount of alcohol. This is due to the natural fermentation of sugars and flavorings, but the amount is so small that it does not cause any reaction. The mother of actor Jack Black, Judith Love Cohen, was an aerospace engineer who worked on the lunar module of the Apollo missions and on the Hubble Space Telescope. The company Frito-Lay sold, in real life, for a period of time, the fictional snack Cheesy Puffs that appear in episodes of South Park. In freestyle swimming competitions, you can use any type of arm and leg movement. However, almost everyone chooses the crawl stroke since it has been proven to be the fastest. The Italian tractor manufacturer Ferruccio Lamborghini personally complained to Enzo Ferrari that the clutches in Ferrari cars were poor and wore out very easily, but his complaint was ignored and mocked. That became his inspiration to create Lamborghini sports cars. Kenyan javelin thrower Julius Yego, who won the silver medal at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, learned the javelin technique by watching YouTube videos when he could not find a professional coach. José Bonaparte, the brother of Napoleon Bonaparte, lived for a time in New Jersey, United States, during the 19th century after having been king of Spain, Sicily, and Naples. He supported himself by selling his jewelry and eventually returned to Europe in the final years of his life. The word cheetah comes from the ancient Sanskrit language spoken in regions of India, adapted from the word chitra, which means spotted or marked. The skin of cheetahs has black spots. Before becoming one of the most famous singers, musician John Bon Jovi made his recorded debut on a Star Wars Christmas album with the song R2-D2, We Wish You a Merry Christmas. Mark Hamill is the actor who has portrayed the Joker for the longest time. He began voicing him in the animated Batman series in 1992 and has played him many times since in other series and movies. The YouTuber Hunter Hobbs made a video in which he manually reached the end of the Excel program by pressing the down arrow key. It took him 9 hours and 38 minutes. Exercising helps improve your mood and makes your day more productive. It directly affects brain function and memory, and these effects last all day if exercise is done in the morning. Centipedes cannot actually have 100 legs. They have 2 legs per body segment, but they always have an odd number of segments. Therefore, there are centipedes with 98 and 102 legs, but not 100. The actor Vin Diesel sent director Steven Spielberg a video of a short film he had made, which also included a letter expressing his admiration for the director. After seeing it, Spielberg wrote a role especially for him in the movie Saving Private Ryan and invited him to participate. Converse sneakers were made in the United States until 2001, when the company declared bankruptcy, and in 2003, Nike bought them. From that year on, production was moved to countries in Asia. There is a region in space known as the Interplanetary Highway, where NASA scientists discovered they could send spacecraft with minimal gravitational resistance and without obstacles such as meteorites. Actor Heath Ledger was very good at playing chess. He won the National Junior Championship in Australia when he was 10 years old, and among his plans was to direct a movie based on the book The Queen's Gambit, which recently had its adaptation on Netflix. In real life, the maximum speed a roadrunner can reach is 26 miles per hour, while the maximum speed of a coyote can be up to 43 miles per hour. This means a coyote could easily catch a roadrunner if it wanted to. Skunks that no longer have scent glands can be excellent pets. Similar to ferrets, they are very docile, can learn tricks, and respond when called by their name. Scientists took 17 years to decipher the origin of a wave signal received by the Parkes telescope in Australia. After exploring every possible scenario, they realized it was a malfunctioning microwave oven on site that was only used to heat food. The rock band Guns N' Roses had a bad habit of starting their shows later than scheduled. On one occasion, they even started a show in Stockholm, Sweden 3 hours late, where the singer Axl Rose told the audience during a song that, if they were bored, they should have stayed home. A newspaper in Poland held a contest in 1954 for people to name a street. Thanks to this, there is now a street called Winnie Pooh in the center of the capital city, Warsaw. The largest cashew tree in the world covers an area of nearly 75,350 square feet and produces more than 60,000 fruits each year. This tree has 2 genetic anomalies that cause its branches to grow outward and form new roots when they touch the ground. This species of fruit is where cashew nuts come from. When Mozart was 8 years old, he was given a test to be accepted to perform for royalty. But first, they wanted to make sure he was not a small adult because he had too much skill for his age. They finally accepted that he was 8 years old when they saw that he stopped playing because he was distracted by a cat running through the room. The Maldives is considered the first country that will disappear as a consequence of rising sea levels. For that reason, for years they have been buying land in India for their citizens, and there are also projects to create new, higher artificial islands in the area. The distorted guitar sound in the song You Really Got Me by the Kinks was achieved when guitarist Dave Davies cut the speaker of his amplifier with a razor blade. This sound influenced the heavy metal and punk genres that would become popular in the following decades. Sea otters have the densest fur in the animal kingdom. They have up to approximately 903,000 hairs per square inch. In comparison, humans have around approximately 1,935 hairs per square inch on the head. The ship Santa Maria, which was the largest vessel in the fleet that took Christopher Columbus on his first voyage to the American continent, actually measured only approximately 62 feet, just slightly longer than an articulated bus. The loudest insects in the world are cicadas. They can reach up to 100 decibels, as loud as a vacuum cleaner or a power saw. The first appearance in an anime of the character Bulma was recently discovered not to have been in Dragon Ball. It was in the movie Urusei Yatsura 3 in 1985, when the Dragon Ball manga had already been released, but the anime had not yet been made. She only appears in the background of a scene for less than 1 second. In 1859, the government of France established a law requiring all orchestras to play at a similar tuning, since in previous decades, orchestras had been raising pitch levels to achieve a generally sharper sound, which caused problems such as broken strings and singers with vocal cord issues. In Europe during the 18th century, house numbering began to be established as mandatory. As a result, there were protests from people who believed it would be a government tool to spy on them. Today, it is a system used all over the world. Each year, the Chinese government offers 60 students full scholarships to study at universities in North Korea. These Chinese students can have much more freedom than tourists in that country. They can travel to different cities and ride the Pyongyang subway without needing to be accompanied by a guide. In 2001, the fourth most visited website on the entire internet was Neopets, a virtual pet web game. It ranked 8 places higher than Google. The British automobile Peel P50 was designed with space only for a single driver and a grocery bag. It also did not have reverse, so to back up, you had to get out and pull or lift the car, something that was possible because it weighed only 130 pounds. The most common birthday of all is September 16th. This means more people have birthdays on that day than on any other day of the year. September is generally the month with the most birthdays. In the year 2000, Sony invented a movie critic named David Manning to use his fictional quotes in the promotion of its films. Shortly afterward, they were exposed. Sony ended up paying more than $1.5 million in total to the people who filed public lawsuits. The acronym SPQR, which was used during the Roman Empire and has been found on numerous ruins from that period and means the Senate and the Roman people in Latin, is still used today in some places, such as on manhole covers in the city of Rome. In the first issue of the comic Amazing Spider-Man from 1963, Peter Parker was called Peter Palmer twice on different pages. This is believed to have been simply an editorial error. On another occasion, Stan Lee also made a mistake with the name of Hulk's alter ego, Bruce Banner, calling him Bob Banner in a comic. Because of this error, the name Robert was later added as well. In Marvel Comics, the most powerful mutant ever registered by the X-Men is Santa Claus, and he has appeared as a character on several occasions. Nowadays, people sleep the same average amount of time as people in ancient or pre-industrial times. However, sleep quality is much lower due to all the artificial light we are exposed to. Actor Charles Chaplin was so popular in 1917 that 9 out of 10 people who attended a costume party that year were dressed as him, according to a survey conducted at the time. In 2011, a 75-year-old woman in the Asian country of Georgia accidentally cut the fiber optic cable that provided internet to 90% of all of Armenia. More than 3 million people were left without connectivity for hours. Claw machines that dispense stuffed toys usually have a setting controlled by the owner that determines a success percentage. If the percentage is very low, almost all the toys will fall before they can be retrieved. And this has nothing to do with the player's skill. Franz Reichelt, a tailor from France, invented a parachute coat that he tested in 1912 by jumping from one of the observation decks of the Eiffel Tower. But his invention did not work, and he did not survive the fall. He had told authorities that he was going to throw a test dummy first. Students in Japan are required to learn 2,136 kanji. These characters are the minimum needed to fully understand the textbooks used to write the Japanese language. The oxygen masks on airplanes are not connected to oxygen tanks as we might think. Instead, they use a chemical reaction with different elements that produces oxygen for several minutes. Word search puzzles are popular in countries with Western languages, such as those that speak Spanish or English. The only word search puzzles you will find in places like China or Japan are in the Latin alphabet and are imported products. Using recycled glass to make new glass requires 40% less energy than making it from scratch with new materials. This is because broken glass melts at a lower temperature than the sand and materials used to make new glass. Paved streets that have a shiny appearance are partly made with recycled glass. The musician Sebastian Bach was fired from the band Skid Row, where he was the vocalist, because he wanted Skid Row to open concerts on a Kiss tour and the other band members refused. Shortly afterward, he sent them a message saying that no band is big enough to refuse opening for Kiss. Singer Kate Bush broke the record for the song that took the longest time to reach #1 on the charts, with the single Running Up That Hill, which reached that position after 37 years. This was thanks to the resurgence the song experienced after appearing in the popular series Stranger Things. At San Francisco International Airport, there is a therapy pig named Lilu who helps people with travel anxiety relax. Lilu is part of a program that also includes dogs for the same purpose. Michael Maniaci is an opera singer whose larynx did not change from childhood for natural reasons. Because of this, he can reach very high soprano notes without using falsetto, unlike most countertenors. The belief that it is better to almost fully discharge device batteries before charging them back to 100% is a myth that comes from nickel-cadmium batteries, which did suffer from the memory effect. In the case of modern lithium-ion technology, the timing of charging is not as important for overall battery health. All octopuses are venomous in some way. They use their beak and their tongue to inject venom through the exoskeleton of their prey, although this does not pose a risk to humans. By analyzing teeth found from Neanderthals, researchers realized that they had residues of plants such as chamomile, which are believed to taste unpleasant, leading them to conclude that the plants were consumed for their medicinal benefits, confirming the intelligence of this human species. Deep-sea black corals are the marine organisms that can reach the greatest age. They can live for more than 4,000 years. The number 95 appears in many Pixar movies. This is a reference to the year the company's first feature-length film, Toy Story, was released in 1995. In most cultures around the world, there came a time when the bow and arrow replaced spears as projectile weapons. The only place where this did not happen was Australia, where the indigenous cultures never invented the bow and arrow. The only two nations that have won at least one medal in every Olympic Games held since 1980 are Sweden and Finland. In the 1920s, there was a proposal in Europe that suggested draining part of the Mediterranean Sea using giant dams in order to use the extra land for farming and to connect the European and African continents to create a new continent called Atlantropa. There is a giant cloud of water vapor in a region of the Milky Way that contains more than 100 trillion times the amount of water found on planet Earth. Water is more abundant in the universe than we previously thought. Pizza Hut restaurants in China had to cancel the salad bar they offered because customers would try to stack as much food as possible onto a single plate, as if it were a competition, even building salad towers with intricate structures. In 1964, Andy Warhol, the artist known for his pop artworks, directed a movie in which Batman fought Dracula. It was completed but could not be released to the public because it did not obtain the license to use DC Comics characters. Had it been released, it would have become the first official Batman movie. The aroma of coffee reduces stress and damage caused by lack of sleep, mainly because people associate it with the feeling of having a cup of coffee in the morning and feeling good due to caffeine intake. In the Pixar movie Coco, in one of the scenes in the Land of the Dead, a poster from The Incredibles, another Pixar movie, can be seen for a few seconds on a wall, except that the characters appear as skeletons. The highest mountain in the Netherlands is Mount Scenery. It has a height of approximately 2,910 feet and is located on an island in the Caribbean. This place is counted as Dutch territory since 2010 after the dissolution of the Netherlands Antilles. A container cargo ship can emit almost the same amount of asthma-causing polluting chemicals as 50 million automobiles. They are one of the most polluting industries in the world. On average, almost 4.4 pounds of your total body weight consist of millions and millions of microorganisms living inside your digestive system that help you digest food. John Lennon wrote the song, "I Am the Walrus," intentionally nonsensical, as a mockery of people who overanalyzed the lyrics of the Beatles' songs. This happened after he received a letter from a fan who told him that his teacher assigned them to analyze his lyrics as homework. Pringles are technically not potato chips, since they contain a mixture of rice, wheat, corn, and partially potatoes, even though the flavor can be very similar to real potato chips. There are space tornadoes. These have been observed on the surface of the sun and are thousands of times larger and more powerful than those that occur on Earth. Mark Zuckerberg had never tried an appletini until he saw it in a scene from the movie The Social Network, where the character representing him orders one. When he tried this cocktail in real life, he liked it so much that he made it Facebook's official drink. All products sold in India must display a maximum retail price on the label. and it is illegal for a business to charge more than what is indicated. It is the only country where this system is used for all products. In other countries, it exists only for medications. The municipality of Olivenza in Spain, located near the border with Portugal, is included among areas of international conflict. This is because Portugal has not renounced its claim to the territory, which was ceded to Spain during the Napoleonic Wars. Humans have cryptochrome photoreceptors, which are the proteins needed to detect magnetic fields in the same way as other animals. But the difference is that our brains cannot decode the information. Therefore, we cannot perceive those magnetic fields. Thomas Pynchon, one of the most celebrated writers of today, has avoided public life for almost his entire career, and the only photos known of him are from the 1950s, when he was in the Navy. The only appearances he has made were in 2 episodes of The Simpsons, where he portrayed himself. The NFL owns the term Super Bowl. Therefore, it cannot be used except by official sponsors. For this reason, many advertisements prefer to call it the Big Game or Super Sunday. Stray dogs or wild dogs in India are different from the dogs we commonly know today. They are known as Indian pariah dogs, and they are believed to be one of the few remaining examples of the first dogs that humans managed to domesticate thousands of years ago. Over the last 5,000 years, genetic change in humans has been 100 times faster than at any other stage of human evolution. This means that modern humans are genetically more different from people who lived 5,000 years ago than those people were from humans who lived 40,000 years ago. On the island of Cyprus, there are more cats than humans. While there are more than 1.5 million felines, the human population is 1.2 million. To comply with regulations, fake dollars used in movies must be strictly printed on only one side and must be either 75% or 150% the size of real bills. There is a phenomenon called the red dress effect, which indicates that a woman wearing a red dress is perceived as more attractive than if she were wearing other colors. This has been reaffirmed in numerous studies. It is believed to be related to reproduction and to come from primal instincts and behaviors. The National Museum of Natural History in Helsinki, Finland, was invaded by the Chilean recluse spider, which is considered dangerous due to its venom, and no one knows how those spiders arrived there, since they are normally found only in Central and South America. In the 1990s, Marvel decided to publish its financial expense reports in the form of comic books, in which superheroes such as Spider-Man and Hulk discussed sources of income and future business plans. They did this so their shareholders would become familiar with the world of comics. In an episode of the series Stranger Things, a periodic table of the elements can be seen in which some fans noticed there is an error, since it includes 9 elements that had not yet been discovered in 1984, the year in which the series is set. It is believed that Mercury is actually the mostly exposed core of a planet that used to be almost 5 times larger, but lost its mantle and crust in a collision with a protoplanet. Musicians who worked with jazz singer Ella Fitzgerald used her voice to tune their instruments, since she had perfect pitch and intonation and could give them the correct note. Around 70% of people experience a sudden muscle spasm at some point when they are about to fall asleep. This is normal and is called a myoclonic jerk, which can include a sensation similar to falling. When the founder of the Stanford University Sleep Research Center, William Dement, who has 50 years of experience, was asked why we need to sleep every night, he replied that the only solid reason they have discovered so far is because we get very sleepy. Seriously, that is what he said. The Court of the State of Massachusetts, United States, established a rule stating that sandwiches must contain 2 pieces of bread without exception, making it illegal to call tacos, burritos, and quesadillas sandwiches due to their composition. The abandoned Riverview Psychiatric Hospital in Vancouver is the most filmed location in Canada. It has appeared in movies and series such as Deadpool 2, Elf, Supernatural, X-Files, among others. Voice actress Catherine Beaumont voiced Alice in the movie Alice in Wonderland in 1951 when she was 13 years old, and she reprised the same character 50 years later in the video game Kingdom Hearts at 64 years old. There was a moment in the 1980s when the Imperial Palace in Tokyo, Japan, was valued higher than all the real estate in the state of California combined, despite covering an area of just over 0.39 square miles. This happened because of a real estate price bubble in Tokyo. Shortly afterward, prices collapsed. The video game store Steam emerged in 2003 because the company Valve had many problems keeping the game Counter-Strike and its servers updated. With Steam, they achieved a direct platform with users where they could sell the game and maintain it. When he was in high school, Bill Gates was assigned to write a program that organized student schedules and classes, and when he turned it in, no one noticed that he had intentionally set it up so he would have classes with a majority of women. The fifth most published comic book character of all time is Donald Duck. He is only behind Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and Wolverine. He is also the Disney character who has appeared in the most movies. When Halley's Comet passed close to Earth in 1910 and the planet moved through the trail it left in space, there was widespread concern among people because it was believed the gases from the comet could wipe out all living beings. So there were many sales of gas masks and anti-comet pills that obviously did nothing. The CIA realized in 1962 that something was wrong in Cuba when satellite images showed new soccer fields, since Cubans preferred baseball and soccer was more popular among the Soviets. This led to the so-called Cuban Missile Crisis during the Cold War. A motorcycle that appeared on the coast of Canada was returned to its owner on the other side of the world in Japan. The motorcycle had crossed the entire ocean, dragged by the force of the tsunami in 2011. The place where the film industry is most concentrated in the world is Hollywood, and the reason it was established there was because of the inventor, Thomas Edison, who held patents on everything related to filming a movie. And the only place where those patents were not valid was California. That is why they moved there. 75% of all sesame seeds grown in Mexico end up on McDonald's hamburger buns, which are distributed to their locations all over the world. The Greek philosopher Socrates suggested a design for houses in ancient Greece in which all windows and doors faced south and the roofs faced north. This kept temperatures mild during the summer while helping retain heat during the winter. Among the requirements to work on expeditions in Antarctica are not having wisdom teeth and not having an appendix, since if an emergency occurs, it is impossible to return in time for treatment. Pepto-Bismol contains bismuth, a metal known for forming crystals with iridescent patterns and for being almost as dense as lead. That is why a bottle of this medicine feels heavier than normal. When we remember things in the third person, meaning from the perspective of others rather than our own, they are called autobiographical memories. This usually happens with very distant memories from childhood that the mind has distorted. In 2015, the city of Beijing in China banned 2.5 million cars from circulation in order to reduce pollution and make the sky appear blue during a parade. Air traffic controllers are required to take a break every 2 hours, since it has been observed that if they work longer than that in a continuous session, their effectiveness can drop considerably, and they may make mistakes even with low levels of traffic. There are human libraries where you can talk to a person for a period of time as if they were a book, listening to the stories they have to tell. There are around 150 similar organizations around the world. The YouTuber Kev Jumbo once created a second YouTube channel and donated 100% of the advertising revenue it generated to a community in Kenya, which used the money to build its first high school and named it after him as a sign of gratitude. Vikings used to sell narwhal tusks to Europeans, who believed they were unicorn horns with magical healing properties.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.